and welcome to this week's episode of Dhoom Channel's Inspiration. I'm your host Bella, and this week I'll be interviewing Major Brendan Nottle of the Salvation Army. Brendan Nottle's work is tireless as he strives to make a difference in people's lives. Through his work in the daily operations of the Salvation Army, Brendan deals with young people, the homeless, international students, people suffering with mental illness, and those who just need somebody to listen. Hello Brendan, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Good to be here, Bella.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell our viewers at home a little something about yourself?
Yeah, I've been with the Salvation Army for 20 years as a Salvation Army officer, and 10 of those I've spent in the city of Melbourne. I'm married, so I've been married for 25 years, got 3 daughters. 26 years I've been married. 3 daughters, so 24, 21 and 16.
Must be a handful.
They are a handful, yeah, but they're a lot of fun. And I think the teenage years have been a lot of fun. We always hear people saying, oh, the dreaded teenage years, how are you going to cope? But they've been fantastic.
Well, that's good. So how did you get involved with the Salvation Army? How did you become a member?
Yeah, it really came about because of my family got involved. In fact, my grandfather got himself into a bit of strife with gambling and had some addiction issues, and he ended up dying when my grandmother was 7.5 months pregnant with my mother. So I don't want to go into all the detail, obviously, but she was 7.5 months pregnant plus 3 young children as well, and she was left broke. So it was the Salvation Army that she went to, and so that's back in 1927, 1928, and received help from the Salvation Army, and the family then said that they wanted to support the Salvation Army, and that's how they got involved. Yeah.
Oh, that's touching, really. It's so good that we have an organisation like that that's out there to help people.
Yeah, and I think one of the inspiring things for me from that story was there were people that were really prepared to step outside the box. So rather than just saying, look, we'll give you some food, or we'll help out with the payment of utility bills or things like that, they actually went much further than that. And they said, we have people that are volunteering with us that will actually come and live with you and help you raise the children. And I just thought it was just amazing commitment. And I actually find that story, that personal story, pretty inspiring today.
Definitely. So you were recently awarded the Melbourne Award for contribution to the community by an individual. Could you tell our viewers at home what the award entails, and furthermore how it feels as a recipient of the award? Yeah,
I think there's been some remarkable people that have received that award, and so it was very humbling to actually be a recipient of that award last year. And the City of Melbourne distribute these awards every year. And I think there's a lot of people that get nominated, and it was great to be part of that process. And I think one of the interesting things for me was they're really interested in something that we've been working on in the City of Melbourne called the Melbourne Way. And we see a lot of violence on the streets in the City of Melbourne, and there was a period there for about 2 years where there was a lot of knife crime. And a lot of people were saying we need more police with more police power, and that will fix the problem. And we're actually on the streets. We're out on the streets most nights of the week, and we see a lot of police on the streets, and we see them with increasing power, but the problems continue. And so we started to think, well, there's actually something much more deeper going on here than will be resolved by more police with more power. And there seems to be, for some reason, people have tended to not value human life as much as perhaps they used to in the past. And we see, even now, we're seeing an increasing number of assaults happening where there's a robbery. The innocent victim will hand over money or phone or whatever it is, and then they end up being seriously assaulted. And we just find that absolutely terrible. And what we're saying is there must be something deeper going on here. And what we're trying to say, what we're trying to communicate is what we need to do is actually start to talk about the sort of Melbourne that we really want, and we need to talk about what values that we want in our city, and then understanding that it's not just government responsibility, or it's not just a police responsibility, it's a whole of community responsibility to say, there's some things that we're just not prepared to tolerate. So seeing, an old woman beaten up at a door, as a community, we want to get to the point where we say, no, it's just not on. And when someone gets robbed and beaten up, we want to say, hey, you don't do that. That's not the Melbourne way. It's not how we treat each other. And we want to get to the point too where we start to address this deep-seated anger that seems to be present in particularly a lot of young people that we work with. And it seems like for a lot of the young people there, some are homeless, some are victims of abuse from home. We work with people from African backgrounds as well. And it seems that for a lot of these young people, they feel locked out. So they feel locked out of a loving family environment where perhaps family are caught up with their own issues and they don't share that love with their children. And so the kids start to feel locked out of family. They go to school and perhaps they don't have the same level of numeracy and literacy that other children do, so they start to feel left out, locked out of school. Then they want to go and get a job, and because they don't have basic numeracy and literacy skills, they feel locked out of the workforce. And when people end up feeling locked out and locked out of the community as well, perhaps because of their behaviour, when they end up being locked out, they start to develop a deep-seated anger. And when people are locked out, it's only a very short path until they're locked up often. And once a person's locked up, it's very, very difficult to rehabilitate them. Yeah. And the Melbourne way is actually about trying to encourage the community to say, we actually need to lock people in. So we need to lock them into meaningful community. We need to lock them in to loving and caring and supportive family. We need to lock them into meaningful and effective training and education opportunities and work opportunities. And when people are locked in, they feel accepted, they feel like they belong, they feel like they're part of the community, and then they become productive contributors. And I think we're missing out on that, and young people that we work with are missing out on that, and it's a serious issue that we believe government really needs to address and the whole of community need to address as well.
So does the Salvation Army run programs that rehabilitate these young people by giving them something to do, something to focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the city of Melbourne, we've got a youth bus that goes out 4 nights a week. So we work with between 70 to 100 under 25s each night. So it's a full-on hectic environment. It's a big double-decker bus, and it's got computers, and it's got a barbecue that slides out the side. It's a buzzy environment, but it's lively. So we have a lot of young people come there that have got significant needs, so they might be homeless or could be dealing with abuse issues, or they could be dealing with addiction issues. So they're in significant need. And so the bus is really, it's sort of an intervention approach. So we intervene in crises that are happening in young people's lives, and we try to connect them into supports that are going to help those young people get back on their feet. Then what we also do in the City of Melbourne is we run some prevention programs. So it's about actually saying to young people, you know what, we want to help you develop skills, and we want you to start to understand yourself a little bit more, so that you start to realise that you've actually got some really good gifts and abilities, and we want to help you develop those and build on those. And it's amazing when you start to see young people build on those. Their whole demeanour completely changes, and that's the part of the work that I really love being part of. We had a guy who's the lead singer in a band called Miami Horror, and he came, and Josh Moriarty, he volunteers with us. He comes out on the bus, and we've had Kimbra come out on the bus and help us out with some of our programs as well. And Josh was saying that he wanted to start a music program for some of the young people that come out on our big youth bus.
The Hammy live music event?
Yeah, that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
The Hammy, yeah. So he started a music program, and out of that music program's come a fantastic young band made up of young people, 15, 16 years of age, that are on the bus and live on the streets, and they write their own songs, and they've just been superb. So at the moment they're putting together their own CD and their own video clips and all that sort of thing, and to watch the demeanour of those young people is just amazing. And there was a young guy that came to the bus when he was 17, and it's the first time we'd had any contact with him, and he actually appeared at the bus and held a box cutter knife to his throat. This is right in the heart of the city, and he was saying, that's it, I'm going to end my life. So it was the very first time that our workers had contact with him, and so they worked really hard to try and talk him down, and they couldn't. So the police came, and the police ended up having to take him to a psychiatric unit to get treatment. And our workers continued to engage with this young guy, and they built a really good connection with him. And it was just 3 years of really, really hard work trying to help this young man understand that he had there was some good in him, that needed to be developed, some really good potential. And then he ended up becoming part of this program, writing his own songs, performing, and the turnaround in his life's been remarkable. And that's the sort of thing that we're committed to. It's working with people that are right on the edge, people that have really fallen through the gaps, and we come alongside them and absolutely just commit ourselves to helping them get back on their feet.
We'll be right back after a short break.
Targeted at the most marginalised in the city. So it could be people that are homeless from a young age right through to older age. It's also targeted at people that are just...
Hello guys, welcome to Dhoom Films. We're an audio video production company that provides green screen recordings, digital biography, event recordings and much more. Contact us on 1300 Melody, that is 1300 MEL Audio.
Welcome back after the break. I'm here with Major Brendan Nottle of the Salvation Army. So the 614 project is obviously the most prominent project that the Salvation Army has going on. What is the aim of the project and who is it aimed to benefit?
The title 614, Project 614, is really the umbrella title for a whole lot of programs that we run out of the City of Melbourne, and those programs are really targeted at the most marginalised in the city. So it could be people that are homeless from a young age right through to older age. It's also targeted at people that are just lonely. So we hear a lot of discussion about economic poverty, and people scratch their heads and say, how do we have economic poverty in Australia? But I think one of the sort of there's probably a hidden issue, I think, for us is social poverty. And there are a lot of people that we work with that are incredibly lonely, and for one reason or another they've become disconnected from family and friends. And a lot of those people are dealing with huge issues in their lives. So it could be mental health issues, could be addiction issues, could be homelessness. They've got no supports. So they're dealing with all of those issues on their own, and they're disconnected and disengaged from friends and supports. And so we work really hard at 614 to run a whole range of programs that engage people, not just around their issues of homelessness or addictions or mental health, but also to engage them around their issues of social poverty. And what we want to do is help people, doesn't matter who they are, what their background is, just help them feel like they belong and that they're accepted. And we're trying to always create a sense of community where anybody can come in, from a sort of very wealthy CEO or a high profile footballer, or right through to a young person that's homeless, to come in and just feel like they're welcomed and appreciated and absolutely valued.
So how did the 614 project get its name?
It really started in Toronto, in Canada, about 12 years ago. So when the Salvation Army actually started back in London in 1865, there was a really strong focus of operating in cities and operating with the most marginalised, and doing everything that they could to actually make people feel like they were welcomed. And the Salvation Army, in its beginnings, was absolutely focused on not discriminating against anyone, and that commitment to non-discrimination is carried right through. I think the idea of 614 was really about trying to revisit those roots of the Salvation Army and saying we really want to make sure that we retain a really strong commitment to working in cities and working with the most marginalised people.
So there was just recently the event held at Federation Square, the reading in bed on Friday at 6:30. Is that what it's called? And do you mind telling our viewers what it was all about?
I think one of the really sort of inspiring things about our work in the city is the opportunity we get to partner with all sorts of interesting groups and interesting people. And Federation Square have been a fantastic partner for us. And Federation Square were running something called the Lights in Winter Festival, and they had a whole lot of sort of art installations and lighting installations happening around Federation Square. And it culminated in Federation Square inviting two artists from Spain to visit Melbourne, and they got hold of 10,000 books, and they created this incredible art installation out of these 10,000 books that actually spilled out onto Flinders Street, and they had all these lights installed in these 10,000 books. It was a stunning piece of art. And they picked up on the books because this is the National Year of Reading and Literacy. And so the Federation Square said to us, we're having something called Reading in Bed, Is there some way we might be able to partner around that? So we're always on the lookout for blankets, because we have a van that goes out 5 nights a week, and we work with 90 to 110 homeless people a night. So we hand out blankets and we hand out hot food, and we work really hard to try and build a connection with people and try and encourage them to come and get involved in our programs, and then allow us to work with them to help find suitable accommodation for them. And so when they said we're going to run this Reading in Bed campaign, we scratched our heads and said, what's that about, And they invited families from all around Melbourne and friends, to come in with a blanket, to come in with a good book or their e-reader, and then to rug up with the blanket and read to each other and have hot chocolate in Federation Square. So we ended up getting a whole bunch of blankets donated. So it was a fantastic initiative that came from Federation Square. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how does the Salvation Army get the capital to fund its charitable works?
Yeah. It comes from a whole range of different avenues. So one of the most significant is the public. And the public in Australia and in Melbourne particularly are incredibly generous. And I think it's inspiring, actually. Like when we have our Red Shield appeal every year, you go out and you're on a street corner or you're door knocking, and the response from people it's inspiring, because you just know that people genuinely want to help others. And I think there's something really good about Melburnians. I think there's this desire within them to really want to look out for people, particularly those that are doing it tough. And I think what happens is people genuinely want to do something good for people that are on hard times. But sometimes I think we scratch our heads and think, man, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what the most effective or appropriate thing is to do. So when an organisation like the Salvation Army comes along and says, can you help us to help the poor? People go, great, this is my opportunity to help out those that are doing it tough. So they'll make a contribution, and the contributions are incredible and help us significantly. Some of our programs get significant state government funding, federal government funding, local government funding, and we also have excellent support from corporations as well that make a significant philanthropic contribution to our work.
Stay tuned, we'll be back again after a few short messages.
So what we do is we have a coffee van down there, and we run it as a social enterprise. So we sell hot dogs to the punters that come out of the...
Hello guys, welcome to Dhoom Films. We're an audio video production company that provides green screen recordings, digital biography, event recordings and much more. Contact us on 1300 Melody, that is 1300 MEL Audio.
Welcome back after the break. I'm here with Major Brendan Nottle of the Salvation Army. So Brendan, tell me about the live music event, the Hammy.
Yeah, the idea of the Hammy really came out of our commitment to doing our part to try and make the city a safer place. And the City of Melbourne come up with a plan where they wanted to activate laneways around the city that weren't just based on alcohol-based activity. So they were saying, let's come up with some alternatives. So we've got some young staff and young volunteers, and they're fantastic. So they said, oh, this is cool, we can do something here. So we've got a laneway next to our building. It's called Westwood Place. And they said, let's start our own sort of live venue, but it won't be based on alcohol. So it's a drug and alcohol-free venue. And we've got different bands come through and perform on a stage. People can buy coffee, they can have something to eat. And it's just a fantastic venue. So what's been happening is, it starts at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, goes through till about 1 a.m, 2 a.m. in the morning. And young people come into the city, and it's been really good because they might have a few drinks at a bar, and then they might say, I've had enough. I might just go and sit down somewhere quietly and listen to some music. So they come to the Hammy. And then we've had people that come into the city, and they're the designated driver. So their mates are getting pretty fueled up, and they're starting to think, I've had enough of being around these guys. So they'll come up to the Hammy, they'll have a coffee, they can sit down and relax. We've had parents come to the Hammy, listen to the music, have a coffee, put their earplugs in, because the music's a bit loud, but they've got somewhere safe to hang out until they drive their kids home. And we've actually had people start to come to the Hammy and just enjoy the music before they go out for a night around the city. So we're really happy with the way it's going. And if there's anybody out there that's got a band and they'd love to perform at the Hammy, let us know, because we're always on the lookout for good bands. The other thing that we've done that's really interesting too in the city is the City of Melbourne set up something called the Queen Street Mega Taxi Rank. and that's operating between midnight and 5 a.m. Friday and Saturday nights. And it's a great place to get a taxi in. You just know there's taxis there and you can get out of the city. So what we do is we have a coffee van down there, and we run it as a social enterprise. So we sell hot dogs to the punters that come out of the nightclubs down there on Queen Street, and we sell coffee and cool drinks, and we give coffee to the taxi drivers for free, and that encourages taxi drivers to come into the taxi rank. So it makes sure people are getting out of the city.
So how can our viewers at home and of course wider the community get involved in other ways in the Salvation Army?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of main ways. I think volunteering is an option, and certainly in the city of Melbourne we're always on the lookout for volunteers. We run a program, this is hardcore, but we run a program on Friday and Saturday nights that starts at 10:30 at night and goes through till 5 a.m. in the morning.
It's the long haul.
It's full on, yeah. And what we do, we have about 20 volunteers, mainly young people, go out Friday night and Saturday night in teams of 4, and they're led by a qualified and experienced worker, and they walk the streets of Melbourne. So they wear these fluorescent green jackets, and they've got bags on their back full of water and rubber thongs of all things, and chupa chups. And the idea is that we come across people that are just out clubbing and party goers, just having a good time. And sometimes girls lose their shoes, when they come out of clubs, or we see it regularly where guys will be wanting to get to the next club, and the girlfriend saying, slow down, my heels are killing me, and all that sort of thing. So we turn up with the rubber thongs and calms everything down. And the chupa chups in the water are really an engagement tool, where we get to talk to people and just make sure that they're safe, and just make sure that they've got a ride home that night and they're going to get home safely. But the sort of deeper aspect to it is that we work very closely with the police, and we go to 2 police briefings every Friday night and every Saturday night, and we brief the police that we're out on the streets and explain what we're doing. And then the police will call us during the course of the night and say, there's a young person that we've found that's really drunk, we're worried about them, or there's a young person that we've come across that we think may be a potential victim, can you come and work with them? And we'll turn up, and we'll either try and reconnect those people with their friends or their family, or we'll actually get them in the van and get them out of the city and get them home. And we do that because we find that there's a lot of pressure on police. Sometimes people are saying in the media, there needs to be more police. I actually think there's enough police on the streets on Friday and Saturday nights, but they often get sidetracked with issues that aren't part of their core business. Yep. And so our thinking around this particular program, Street Teams, is if we can release the police from their non-core activity and allow them to get back to do their core business, which is law and order, then I think the city becomes a safer place. And that's something we're really passionate about, is not just making the city a more safer place, but actually improving the perception of safety in the city as well.
So do you have a short message you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I think Melbourne's a great place, and I think all of us work together to make Melbourne a great city. And I think as Melburnians, I think we're pretty proud of the city, and I think we want to do everything we can to make it an even better place. So I think we can do that by really looking out for each other, particularly looking out for those that are doing it tough and helping out where we can. But I think also a great opportunity is to volunteer and get involved in programs that are helping make Melbourne the place that it is. And there are plenty of opportunities to volunteer with us if people are interested. So if they'd like to get involved in volunteering with the Salvation Army in the City of Melbourne, if they give our office a call, we'd love to have a talk to them.
Well, thank you, Brendan. It's been truly an honour to have you on. It is a shame that in this day and age we need organisations like the Salvation Army, but thank God we have them. Your work is tireless and truly inspiring.
Great, thanks Bella. Thanks for having me on, and all the best with the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we come to the end of this week's episode, I'd like to leave you all with an inspirational quote by Winston Churchill. We make a living by what we earn, but we make a life by what we give. Thank you for watching. I'm your host Bella, and I look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Dhoom Channel's Inspiration.